Hello dear students, this is Komila Mirani from KV number 3 Sagar, and I hereby present before you the first video lesson of class 12 English core textbook Vistas chapter number 2, The Tiger King, written by Kalki. Kalki or Ramaswamy Iyer Krishnamurthy was a Tamil writer, journalist, poet, critic and Indian independence activist. He wrote around 20 short stories, 10 novels and much more. He was honoured by the government of Tamil Nadu and stamps were issued in his name. He died at the age of 54. Now this story, The Tiger King, is actually a political satire. Students, you are in class 12 and by now most of you must have a basic knowledge of what is satire. It is a literary device which exposes follies and mistakes of people in a light manner with an aim to bring improvement in it. So this story is a satire on the conceit of those who are in powerful position. Now how? Most of the time, people who are in power, who are influential, it is seen that in modern days, they are not interested in serving the people or work for the welfare of the public. Instead, they spend their time in foolish pursuits. In this story, the author concentrates on the theme that human life is highly transient. But then also, the king here, he relies on his power and he wants to become immortal. The second issue that this story raises is an earnest plea or an appeal for the protection of tigers. And not only tigers, it's about nature and wildlife. Wildlife and nature, they are the property of the world, they are the heritage and they need to be conserved and preserved. Now we move on to the important characters of this story. The first character is of course the Tiger King. He is the Maharaja of Pratibandhapuram, a South Indian state. Then there is an astrologer, the secretary of the British officer, the Diwan, the Durai Sani and the villagers. Now it's very important to know the background and location of this story. The background is pre-independent India. The story mentions native Indian states that were puppets in the hands of Britishers and how the Indian princes and Indian kings, they foolishly and they foolishly followed the English culture, the Western culture, and the setting or the location is in the kingdom of Pratibandhapuram, a state of South India. The hero of the story is the Maharaja of Pratibandhapuram. He is identified by various names, various titles have been conferred upon him. His Highness, Jamidar General, Khilidar Major, Shatvyagr Samhari, that is 100 tiger killer, Vishwabhuvan Samrat, that means the king of the world, Sir Jilani Jang Bahadur, MADACTCCRCK, and is often shortened as the Tiger King. So henceforth, this man, this king who was conferred upon with various titles would now be known as the Tiger King. In this video lesson, I will be dealing with part 1, part 2, 3 and 4 of the lesson. The lesson goes on in textbook Vistas chapter number 2 from page number 8 to 16, and in this video lesson we shall be dealing with page number 8 to 13. The main subheads under which we shall be discussing things are the Maharaja's childhood, then his crowning, then mission tiger hunting begins, the Maharaja gets married, but mission 100 is still incomplete. Now let's move on to the story straight away. As I already told you, the Maharaja of Pratibandhapuram is the hero of the story. He was identified with many titles, but finally he is known as the Tiger King. All the titles taken together, they are often shortened to the name the Tiger King. In the next paragraph, the author says, the narrator of the story says, that he has come to narrate to us the story in which he would be mentioning the reasons that why he came to be known as the Tiger King. He says that he doesn't have any intention or plan of advancing in a very grand and majestic manner and then moving off the track. He says that he has decided, he is determined that he will move on the story in a grand and majestic manner as he has given a majestic beginning. Even a Stuka bomber cannot divert him from his story. That means he would never allow us to be bored. The magnificence of the story would continue to attract and interest us till the end. He also says that the Stuka, if the Stuka likes, it can beat a history retreat from his story. That means it can run away, but he won't be diverted. Now, what is a Stuka bomber? The Stuka bomber was a German bomber aircraft that was used during the Second World War. Its picture I have brought it for you, and there's some information which I have taken from Google. Now, right at the start, the narrator says that it's very important to disclose a matter of vital importance about the Tiger King. Anyone who would read this story about the Tiger King, he would have a natural desire that he or she should get a chance to meet a man of such indomitable courage. Indomitable, as a person who never accepts defeat is known as indomitable. But then in the very next sentence, the author says that there is no chance of this desire being fulfilled, and he takes an example from the Ramayana. It's an allusion. The figure of speech that has been used here is allusion. When we talk about Ramayana, we know that Lord Ram was exiled for 14 years. Now when his brother Bharat, he went to meet Lord Ram in the forest, naturally the first thing that Ram wanted to know from Bharat was that how was his father. And what did Bharat inform him? That their father had reached the final abode. So here the narrator says that there is no chance of our desire being fulfilled to meet this man, to meet this king who was conferred upon so many titles, so brave and courageous he was. There is no chance of us getting a chance to meet this man because he has reached his final abode. Final abode means final destination. It's believed that the soul escapes the body and it goes to a destination, that is meeting with God or something like that. So he says that in other words the Tiger King is dead. Now this is a sudden twist, a dramatic twist. A man who was so courageous, so brave, how is he dead? So the narrator moves on with the story. In the beginning of the story, he talks about his death. He says that the manner of death of this man who was given the title of the Tiger King is a matter of extraordinary interest. But he would reveal the way, the manner of his death in the end, at the end of the story. The most fantastic aspect of the Tiger King's death was that as soon as he was born, Now, since he was born in a royal family, he belonged to the family of kings. So he had a grand birth ceremony. The astrologers at the time of his birth had foretold, had predicted that one day the Tiger King would have to die. Now, when a child is born, when the birth ceremony or the naming ceremony is going on, no one talks about the death. People are happy. But here, this royal prince, when he was born, the astrologers are talking about his death. Now, what did the astrologers say? In the next paragraph, the narrator says that the astrologers who were present there at the birth ceremony of the child, they said that this child would grow up to be a very courageous, a strong, a brave warrior, warrior of warriors, hero of heroes, champion of champions. And they started drawling. After this, they stopped, and this created a doubt in the minds of the people. He would grow up to be a brave and courageous king. But then what? Why had they stopped? Why didn't they speak further? They started biting their lips and swallowed hard. It was difficult for them to disclose the next prediction. When they were compelled or forced to continue with their prediction, the astrologers finally had to come out with the real forecast. They said that this is a secret. It should not be revealed at all. But they were forced to speak it. And what was the secret? They said that this prince, this little child of the royal family of Pratibandhapuram, he was born under a particular star. And then they said that the child born under this star would have to die one day. Now everyone was horrified. Astrologers were talking about the death of a little child who was just born and who they claimed would become a warrior of warriors. At that very moment when they predicted this thing, a miracle took place. Now what is a miracle? Miracle means a wonder. Something that cannot be explained with the help of logic or science is known as miracle. Suddenly, the little child who was only 10 days old, he started speaking. He said, "O wise prophets!" Everyone was wonderstruck. Who was speaking? Where did this squeaky voice come from? People started staring at each other wildly. They blinked their eyes. Again the same kind of sound came. "O wise prophets! It was I who spoke." Now this time there was no doubt. Everyone was certain that it was the little infant, the little baby, just 10 days old, who was talking. And that too very clearly, enunciated. Enunciated means pronounced clearly. The chief astrologer didn't believe his eyes. He took off his spectacles and he very interestedly started gazing at the little baby. And then the astrologer, who is also known as prophet. Why is he known as a prophet? Prophet means a messenger of God, who has got the power to look into the future, who has got some extraordinary communication with God, is known as a prophet. Now the little baby said that you have said nothing different. Everyone who is born into this mortal world has to die one day. And no one needs your predictions for that. The little baby is talking to the astrologer. He says that if you want to make some sense, some logic in your statements, in your prediction, please tell everyone the manner of the death of this king. That means he's talking about himself. And he's speaking all these things, all these sentences in squeaky voice. Squeaky means high-pitched voice. The high-pitched sound, just like that of a mouse or a rat. The chief astrologer, of course, he had been questioned. It was a challenge for him. So he placed his finger on his nose. He was wonderstruck. He was surprised. A 10 days baby was speaking. Not only speaking, it was raising intelligent questions. It was unbelievable. Incredible means unbelievable. And now the narrator again compares it to something very interesting. How much unbelievable? Just like the bulletins issued by the War Office than facts. The chief astrologer, then of course he had been questioned in public, so he fixed his eyes upon the little prince, and then he started telling about his prediction. He said that since this little prince was born in the hour of the bull, and bull and tiger are enemies, therefore the death of this prince when he would grow up, it would come from a tiger. Now, every one of us, we the readers, we the listeners, we would think that upon hearing this prediction, this forecast about his death, the little crown prince, he would have been thrown into a quake. Thrown into a quake means he would have been thunderstruck. He would have been frightened. He would have been terrified when he would have heard the word tigers. But this did not happen. As soon as this little baby, 10 days old, as soon as he heard the word tiger from the mouth of the astrologer, he started growling. And he started almost giving a threatening warning. He said, "Let tigers beware." So instead of getting frightened, instead of getting terrified, this little baby who had come to know about its death said that tigers should beware of him. He would never be afraid or frightened of a tiger. Now this account, this story, it's a rumor rife in Pratibandhapuram. Rumor, something that goes from one mouth to another, one ear to another. Something that does not have any proof. Rumors, or most of the time they arise from gossips. So this account, this story about the incident that had happened when the royal prince of Pratibandhapuram was born, this became a rumor rife in Pratibandhapuram. But then the narrator says that if you look behind, hindsight, if you look behind, you may conclude that there was some truth in it. Because when you see the incidents that would happen further in the story, you would find that yes, there is some connection between what's happening and what happened during his childhood. So you cannot completely call it a rumor. Now, Crown Prince Jung Jung Bahadur, Jilani Jung Bahadur, what was his name at that time? It grew taller and stronger day by day. It was growing up in a royal family, and no other miracle, nothing other exceptional incident happened in his childhood days apart from the incident that has already been described. Now let's have a look at the upbringing of this royal prince. As I already told you in the beginning, this story is set in pre-independence times when the native Indian rulers, they were puppets in the hands of the Britishers. So see what kind of life the princes led. The common people were suffering, and these royal people, they lived very elite, very royal, very luxurious life. The boy was given to drink milk of English cow. He was brought up by an English nanny, that is an English caretaker. He was tutored in English language by English teachers. He saw nothing but English films, exactly as the other princes of the Indian states did. So it was nothing special. But of course it was a royal upbringing. When he came to the age of 20, the state till now had been with the court of wards. Now what is court of wards? During the times of English or the British times, there were some special rules. If the king was not present, and if there was a male heir, H-E-I-R, heir, a male son in the king's family who would later on be ready to rule the kingdom, till then the state would be in the hands of the English officers. So the state was till now in the hands of English court of wards, and now it came into his hands. At the age of 20, he was crowned as the king of Pratibandhapuram, or the Maharaja of Pratibandhapuram. Now, everyone in the kingdom, They remembered that incident that had happened during the childhood. And they started talking and gossiping about it. Many people discussed that matter, and this story slowly reached the ears of the Maharaja. Now, when it reached the ears of the Maharaja started planning what to do to prove the astrologers wrong. Now, a boy who has been given Western education, he changes the course of his life just to prove an astrologer wrong. Now there were a number of forests in Pratibandhapuram state, and luckily the state of Pratibandhapuram, the forests were rich in tigers. The Maharaja was also educated, and therefore he knew an old saying that if your life is in danger, you may even kill a cow to defend your own life. So certainly there would be no objection if he would kill tigers in self-defense in order to save his life. If someone would ask him that why did he want to kill tigers? So because there was a danger to his life from tigers. And from then onwards, the Maharaja started out on tiger hunt, mission tiger hunting. Now when he killed his first tiger, he was excited beyond limitation, thrilled beyond measure, excited beyond limitation. His joy knew no bounds when he killed his first tiger. He sent for the state astrologer and showed him the dead animal. And he asked the astrologer, "What do you say now? Do you still say that I would be killed by a tiger?" The astrologer had complete confidence in himself. He said, "Your Majesty, you may kill 99 tigers in the same way." But then he started drawling. He started dragging as if he was hiding something. "But what?" the Tiger King said. "Speak without fear. But you must be careful with the 100th tiger." This is what the astrologer said as a kind of warning to the Maharaja of Pratibandhapuram. You must be careful with the 100th tiger. And then the king accepted the challenge. He said, "What if he killed the 100th tiger?" The astrologer was so confident. He was so sure with his prediction that he said that if this happened without any danger falling upon the life of the king of Pratibandhapuram, he said that he would tear up all his books on astrology, burn them, and then suddenly he could think of nothing else. That what would he do? He had accepted, the king had accepted his challenge, and he was ready to kill 100 tigers. Now the astrologer was not prepared that what would he do if he was proved wrong. So suddenly an idea came to his mind, and he said that he would burn up all his books of astrology, tear them, and then cut off his tuft. Now what is tuft? This is the tuft. This is known as the tuft. A tuft, a small bunch of hair at the back of the head that we normally see on the heads of the priest is known as tuft. And then he suddenly, incoherently, without any logic, any link, without any relevance, he said that he would become an insurance agent. He would leave astrology and he would become an insurance agent. So there are many incidents where you would find humor in the way the narrator has narrated this story. Like the incident of the Stuka bomber, the narrator says that he would not divert. He has started the story majestically in a grand manner. He would continue it and not let the readers go bored. Similarly, here also he says that the astrologer said that he would become an insurance agent. Now from that day, life became different for the people of Pratibandhapuram. The king started on his mission of tiger hunting. His mission was to kill 100 tigers to save his life and to prove the astrologer wrong. Tiger hunting was banned for everyone except the king himself. An order was issued, a proclamation was issued that if anyone would even fling carelessly throw a stone at a tiger, all his wealth, all his property would be taken away by the state. That means no one could even think of harming tigers. The Maharaja vowed means pledged. He made a promise to himself that he would attend to all the administrative affairs and affairs of family and state only after completing his mission of killing 100 tigers. In the beginning, he faced no problem. As I already told you, his state was a tiger-rich state. He was already brave and courageous, so he didn't find much difficulty. He started on the mission of fulfilling his ambition. But many a times he had to face many dangers. Sometimes he would miss his target. Sometimes he had to fight with the wild beast barehanded. Barehanded means without any weapon in his hand. Sometimes the tiger would pounce upon him. So there were all kinds of accidents and incidents that kept on happening. But every time luck favored him and the Maharaja won. Now once it so happened that the Maharaja even stood in the danger of losing his throne. Now what happened that a high ranking British official, a Durai, D-U-R-A-I, Durai is probably something like a revenue collection officer, an officer of the English government, a Durai who was fond of hunting tigers, and more than hunting tigers, he was fond of getting himself photographed with the carcass or the dead bodies of the tigers. He came to Pratibandhapuram. He knew that Pratibandhapuram was a tiger-rich state. So he wished to hunt tigers there. But Maharaja, since he had issued a proclamation that no one would be allowed to hunt tigers except himself, he was very determined. He was resolute. He said no, and he refused permission. Now again an example of humor. He said that to please the British officer, he could organize any other hunt. A mosquito hunt, a mouse hunt, a boar hunt. See the humor. In order to please the British officers, because they had to keep the British officers happy. After all, the Indian princes were ruling because of the mercy of the English people. So they couldn't dare to make them angry. So he said that he was ready to organize a mouse hunt, a boar hunt. Boar is a kind of wild pig. A mosquito hunt. But tiger hunt, it was impossible. Now the British officer's secretary came to the Maharaja and said that if the tiger king, if the Maharaja did not want the officer to do the hunting, he could do the hunting himself. He could only give permission to the Durai or the British officer to have himself photographed with the tiger's carcass and he holding the gun in his hand. But the Maharaja did not relent, did not agree to this proposal, because he knew that if he would agree once, there would be other hundreds of officers, many officers would come with such proposals, and then what would he do? Now because he had angered, he had displeased the British officer, the Maharaja was in the danger of losing his kingdom. Now this is a very important question, a 2 marks question that is often asked in board examinations, that how did the Maharaja once stand in the danger of losing his kingdom? The Maharaja and the Diwan, his minister, his counsellor, they held discussions over this serious issue, and then after a lot of consideration, they sent a telegram to a famous company of British jewelers in Calcutta. And what was written in the telegram? Send samples of expensive diamond rings of different designs. Now we can easily guess what is this. This is bribe. The king wanted to please the Durai with bribe. Now what is the bribe he is offering? Diamond rings of different designs. Around 50 rings arrived from that famous British company from Calcutta. Now the Maharaja did not select rings from those. Instead he sent the whole lot, the whole 50 rings to British officer's wife to please her, so that the husband, that is the Durai, would also be pleased. The king and the minister expected that the Durai Sani, that means the Durai's wife, she would choose 1 or 2 rings and send the rest back. Within no time, the Durai Sani she sent a thanks message and she said that she had liked the rings. That means she kept all the rings. Now, bribery is an evil, and in this story, with the example of with the help of satire and light humor, the author, the narrator, has pointed out that this is a folly, and there are many people, the powerful as well as those who are working under, who are affected by this evil. So the Duraisani, she kept all the 50 rings and sent a thanks message to the ruler, that is the Maharaja of Pratibandhapuram, and the Maharaja was happy. He had been able to save his throne. It cost him around 3 lakhs rupees, which did not belong to him. The money belonged to the public. It should have been used. It must have been used ideally for public welfare. But where was it used? To save the throne of a foolish king. But he had managed to retain his kingdom. He continued to be highly successful in his tiger hunts. 10 years passed. He did not pay attention even a little bit to administrative affairs. See, just imagine what would have been the condition of his kingdom. What would have been the wishes of the public at that time? 10 years time he had spent and 70 tigers were killed. And then suddenly something happened. Unforeseen hurdle. Unforeseen hurdle means something that had not been thought, that had not been imagined. In hurdle means obstacle, difficulty. And his mission was brought to a standstill. Standstill means suddenly it came to a stop. Why? Because suddenly the Pratibandhapuram forest, they became dry. They became dry means suddenly tigers started becoming extinct. Naturally, when the tigers were killed, they would naturally become extinct. Now the author again uses satire and humor here. He says, who knows whether the tigers practiced birth control or committed harakiri or simply ran away from the state because they desired to be shot by British hands alone. Now it seemed to be a mystery that how all of a sudden the tigers had started becoming extinct. Had the tigers started practicing birth control measures? They did not want to raise new population, or they had committed harakiri. Now harakiri is a kind of suicide, a ritual of suicide that was traditionally practiced in Japan. People who wanted to save their honor, to save their pride, if they had danger from someone, they considered it better to kill themselves in order to save their pride and honor. So this is harakiri. So it seemed as if the tigers had committed harakiri. They did not want to be killed by the Maharaja of Pratibandhapuram, so they had committed suicide. Or simply they had escaped from the state of Pratibandhapuram because they desired to be shot by British hands, not by an Indian Maharaja. Now the Maharaja called the Diwan and he said, if the Diwan remembered that 30 tigers were still left for mission 100. And when he called the Diwan, he was brandishing his gun. Brandishing means polishing. When a warrior is ready to go for a fight, he brandishes his weapons. He polishes them, he gets them ready. So he is brandishing his gun. The Diwan starts shuddering with fear and he says, yes, Majesty, I know, but I am not a tiger. What can I do? See the humor, see the ridiculousness. The Diwan does not have the guts to guide. What is the work of a Diwan? To counsel the king. He is an advisor to the king, but he does not have the guts. He does not dare to tell the king that you are only wasting your time. He just shudders at the sight of the gun and he said, sir, I am not a tiger. And then there goes on a humorous dialogue between both of them. And finally, the Tiger King or the Maharaja, he told the Diwan that he wanted to get married. In the beginning, the Diwan, because he was terribly frightened, he didn't understand the meaning. He said that the king, he could get married, he should get married to a woman. shouldn't get married to a gun or a tigress or something like that. So there is a humorous dialogue between the king and the Diwan. Finally, the Maharaja is able to convince the Diwan that he actually wants to marry a girl, and why he has called the Diwan, the purpose is that he wants the Diwan to collect statistics, data from the nearby states where there is an eligible girl in the royal family and where there are enough tigers in the forest. So upon the instructions of the Maharaja, the Diwan collected data, and finally such a girl was found from a royal family of a nearby state, and the tiger king got married. So marriage is not out of love or not out of getting a family, but it is more out of the reason that he wants to complete his tally of killing 100 tigers. So the Maharaja now got married to a girl of a royal family whose father's state had lot of tigers. So every time he would go to his father-in-law's house, he would kill 5 or 6 tigers every time, and in this manner 99 tiger skins could be seen adorning the walls of the reception hall in the Pratibandhapuram palace. So he was able to kill 99 tigers, and the evidence or the proof was 99 tiger skins that were decorating the walls of the royal palace of Pratibandhapuram. The Maharaja's anxiety now grew. He remembered the prediction of the astrologer. What had the astrologer said? That your Majesty, you may kill 99 tigers in the same way, but the 100th tiger would be a difficult one. He had the same dream during the night and the same thought during the day. That means he was so obsessed with the 100th tiger that he couldn't sleep. He was actually restless, but this 100th tiger was nowhere to be found. Only one was needed, and that one tiger was not found anywhere. He had only one idea in mind, and that was that only one tiger, and then he would leave hunting forever altogether, and he would never hunt. But then he also remembered that this 100th tiger was very risky. The chief astrologer had said that if he was proved wrong, he was so confident that if he was proved wrong, he would leave astrology. The tiger king also realized that after all, tiger is a wild animal, it's uncontrollable, and one should always be wary, W-A-R-Y, wary means cautious, very careful of it. But where was this 100th tiger to be found? Again, a statement of humor. The narrator says that it seemed easier to find tiger's milk than a live tiger. So it's almost impossible. So the 100th tiger was nowhere to be found. Now I have presented the main points in a form of summary for all of you. You can go through this summary. You can take a screenshot of this, the incident at the time of the birth, astrologer's prediction, the 10-day-old prince talking, the chief astrologer making a prediction that he would be killed because of a tiger, and then the little child growling, saying, "Let tigers beware." The incident becoming a rumor and gossip in Pratibandhapuram, the king growing up in an English environment, getting crowned. Yes, then at the age of 20 he becomes the king. When he comes to know about the incident, he starts killing tigers, and his mission is to kill 100 tigers. 99 tigers are killed. Many a times, many kinds of dangers are there, but still luck always favors him. Now the 100th tiger is nowhere to be found. So all of you can go through this, you can take screenshots of the main points, and then I have got an assignment for you. Read the chapter, listen to this, watch this video, and then try to answer these questions. Who is the tiger king? Why does he get that name? What is the general attitude of human beings towards wild animals? Why are poor wild animals subjected to cruelty by human beings? What did the royal infant grow up to be? What will the Maharaja do to find the required number of tigers to kill? What extraordinary event happened when the Tiger King was 10 days old? What was the rationale behind the astrologer's prediction that the Tiger King would be killed by a tiger? How was the Tiger King once in the danger of losing his throne? And how did he get out of the clash with the British officer? Try to answer these questions. Write these questions in your copies, write their answers, and get them checked from your teachers. Thank you all. Thank you so much. In the next video, I'll bring before you the part 5, page number 14 to 16 of the chapter. Thank you.